But let's get to this next section really quick, fam, because let me tell you something. When it comes to the censorship, the censorship kings, I said, visited the Senate the other day. I saw this article in Zero Hedge, and it pretty much just said Dorsey, Zuckerberg defend their Section 230 freedoms in a prepared testimony ahead of the hearings. We've been talking about this section of the, I believe it's the Communications Decency Act or Freedom Act. Section 230 says that you have to make a distinguish between being a platform or a publisher. So if you're a platform, you can't be held liable to be sued if you're just a platform, if you offer fair discourse across the board. However, there are some certain situations where, you know, if you're inciting violence or you have hate speech, they can take you down and they won't get a smack on the hand. Now, when I saw this article, it was before the C-SPAN hearing that was this morning.
Who's the original article from?
I can't remember who. But really, I just said that they're getting ready to go there and talk about 230. So really, the article didn't offer a lot. It was before the actual situation, before the actual Senate hearing. So I dove into the Senate hearing today. Now, we're not going to go over the whole thing because it's a 3-hour Senate hearing. So we're going to go over some of the witnesses and some of the testimonies that went on, and we're going to talk about them. So now the opening statements from Senator Wicker. He's going to talk about what the meat and potatoes of this Communication Act and what this hearing is about. We talk about this all the time, fam, because this is where they've gotten away from not being held liable. However, they've been tweaking their algorithms. They've been choosing winners and losers, and they should be held accountable for it. Now, Donald Trump wants to strict the whole 230 Act because he says no. If they're not going to play by the rules, then they should be held accountable. If they're going to be played a publisher, you know what I'm saying? Let them be sued. Then somebody wants to sue them for, you know, for unfair use or for suppressing them without reason. Let them be sued. However, I would just like to see this act instated and run fairly and have the what's the words I'm looking for? The orders of what you can do. The rules, in other words, allow for transparency. They would have to tell you why they're taken down. They have to be seen, whatnot. And they talk about all these issues, the way they can censor you, shut you down. Johnny knows about this. When they shut us down for the last one, were they kind of vague in why they shut us down, Johnny? Or were they specific on why they shut us down?
No, they were extremely vague.
Extremely vague. You hear what I'm saying? So
They've
they
always
said,
been extremely vague.
Yes, always vague. And that's the thing. They really don't have to tell you why they're suppressing you, and you don't get an answer. And they have millions and millions of dollars, billions of dollars. They can hire people to sit over there and talk and tell you why. So there's a lot of things to unpack when it comes to this testimony over here. So let's talk about what Section 230 of the Communication Act is all about. This is 106. Johnny has some of the stuff up. We'll talk about it right after. Just listen to what he says this is about. This is the meat and potatoes of the hearing.
And to Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, often referred to as the 26 words that created the Internet. There is little dispute that Section 230 played a critical role in the early development and growth of online platforms. Section 230 gave content providers protection from liability to remove and moderate content that they or their users considered to be, quote, obscene, lewd, lascivious, filthy, excessively violent, harassing, or otherwise objectionable, end quote. This liability shield has been pivotal in protecting online platforms from endless and potentially ruinous lawsuits. But it has also given these internet platforms the ability to control, stifle, and even censor content in whatever manner meets their respective standards. The time has come for that free pass to end. After 24 years of Section 230 being the law of the land, much has changed. The internet is no longer an emerging technology.
All right, you can kill it right now. All right, and go to the next part. And he also talks about the repercussions. Right? In other words, when this started out, fam, they put this in there so these platforms could grow. They didn't realize the power and the potential they could have to censor speech, to change the narrative, to suppress one, to put forth. So they didn't realize the dangers they were walking into when they started Google, or at least maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But yeah. Google, Facebook, and Twitter, these are the three CEOs that were called there, Jack Dorsey, Zuckerberg, and the other gentleman from Google. I have a hard time pronouncing his name, big Obama supporter. And, you know, these laws that were put into place were there to protect people. In other words, to promote free discourse, to get out there, to say why. However, they've outreached their power, and they do it through their censorship. And most of this hearing, a lot of this hearing was about, some of the Republicans were making it all about, why are you going after the president, but you're letting the Communist Party of China still post stuff? Why are you suppressing Hunter Biden information, but letting the dictator of Iran go out there? So you still heard that Republican kind of like sentiment of like, they want to censor other people of sorts sometimes. Like
right.
they didn't remove that fear that they would stop, censoring people, you know what I'm saying? So, but there were a couple Republicans who did stay on point, and I was very happy to the fact that the Republicans circled the wagon and still ended up with, well, why are you suppressing this person and not suppressing the other? You want to say anything to that? Because I would just want you to.
Go ahead.
Now, this is something, and this is
real quick. What was said in the last clip that we just saw? So basically, this is the rules of the internet. Who was that guy?
That was Senator Wicker. Okay,
that's Senator Wicker.
Senator Wicker.
It's a Chairman Wicker.
Yeah, but he's a senator.
He's a chair or something.
Yes, he's of one. He's a couple bills out there right now too as well. He talks about. He's a senator. He's just the chairman of that committee.
Okay.
Of the committee that's there. So he's the one who brought forth the Senate hearing and conjured up Jack Dorsey and then the rest of the crew
the one
to do
that's
so.
trying to hold them accountable, basically.
So it's the Senate Commerce, Science, and Transportation Committee.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. He talks about 230. Okay, now 230 is a provision in there that says that these platforms will not be held liable and they can't get sued if they promote themselves as a platform where you can go up and put stuff there. Now you can't incite violence, you can't go over the line, but using that little kind of niche little area where it's saying, well, this is ludicrous, this is false information, this is wrong, you can't do that. You know what I'm saying? That's an issue, fam, because now they have they can play favorites. They can pick winners and losers.
So he's the chair of the committee. He also thinks that Section 230 should be gone.
He doesn't necessarily say that. He says
it should be eliminated. The time has come to end it or something.
Well, he wants to redo it, whatnot.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to just eliminate it altogether, where the president wants to eliminate it. Even Joe Biden says he wants to eliminate it. I don't know what he means by that.
That's what you said, though.
But he kind of talks a little bit more about it. This is a long thing, and I had to listen to his opening remarks. He kind of talks about it can't stand the way it is right now, 230, if there's no transparency behind it. In other words, if Google or Twitter or Facebook doesn't allow you to know what's going on, it's kind of like that black box voting situation. The same thing occurs right here. They get away with murder because there's no oversight, and they can play favorites. And they also talk about that Hunter Biden getting censored on the Post, while meanwhile Russiagate for years went on and nobody censored a goddamn thing. So they do talk about that. So once again, he's not clear about that, John, but he does talk about the way 230 is existing right now, that it can't go on without the transparency of these tech companies telling you why they are censoring you.
Gotcha.
So therefore, you can have that in the court of law and
Which
say,
I think is, I would go farther and say they can't do it, period. Like, we can't, this is not, free speech is free speech.
Yeah, well.
And the court can decide if that's hate speech, because even that is going to say, well, Alex Jones was threatening so-and-so's family, blah, blah, blah. So Anna Kasparian wants to censor Alex Jones. See, even in that way, you still go down that slippery slope. I'm very much entirely free speech, and if you don't like it and if you think it's threatening somebody, then it goes to like a court of the people, and that's how you decide. But no government nor these big tech giants should be deciding what is truth and what isn't truth, and what should be free and what isn't free.
because you know why, fam? It's a death sentence. And here Wicker says it right here. When they're able to do this to companies like ours or other companies, it's a death sentence. Not just the fact that they're not putting our information out, they're also demonetizing us, taking money out of our pockets, so therefore we can't succeed. And that's what they do. So he just mentions that right here, fam.
Amplifies the power wielded by Facebook and Twitter. Google recently generated its own controversy when it was revealed that the company threatened to cut off several conservative websites, including The Federalist, from their ad platform. Make no mistake, for sites that rely heavily on advertising revenue for their bottom line, being blocked from Google's services or demonetized can be a death sentence. According to Google, the offense of these websites was hosting user-submitted comment sections that included objectionable content.
All right. pretty
But
much I
Google's
wanted to point out right there what the ramifications, fam. It's a death sentence. They play God, Google, Twitter, Facebook. The power that they have is ridiculous. They can kill you if they want, and they don't even have to tell you how they kill you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, I agree with all of this. I just think it's kind of hypocritical, too, that the Trump administration is at simultaneously prosecuting people like Julian Assange, while some of these Republicans are saying, well, Google is, stepping up their reaching oversight. So it's just kind of like free speech is free speech. If journalists are going to use it, if everybody is going to use it to expose everything, it should be a unilateral thing across the board. And I just see a lot of politicization too. Like they're only saying this because they're getting attacked too, a lot of these people.
Yeah,
and I think it's important to note that
some
well.
are, and then some aren't. Some of the First Amendment abolitionists, or not abolitionists, first absolutist, First Amendment absolutists came in and said, like, nope. And that was the last one we'll look at. But let's take a look at Jack Dorsey, because Jack Dorsey is using the avenue is that we're acting in good faith. And you have to take it that we're acting in good faith. That's what we're doing. We're trying to stop the spread of misinformation or hate speech. Or
we know that's not true, but even if it were true, it doesn't matter.
I mean, he's pretty much admitting that he is playing God here. So let's take a look at Jack Dorsey in this one part, 2004 to 2051.
So thank you for being with us, and you are now recognized for 5 minutes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, members of the Commerce Committee, for the opportunity to speak with the American people about Twitter and Section 230. My remarks will be brief so we can get to questions. Section 230 is the most important law protecting internet speech, and removing Section 230 will remove speech from the internet. Section 230 gave internet services two important tools. The first provides immunity from liability for users' content. The second provides good Samaritan protections for content moderation and removal, even of constitutionally protected speech, as long as it's done in good faith. That concept of good faith is what's being challenged by many of you today. Some of you don't trust we're acting in good faith. That's the problem I want to focus on solving. How do services like Twitter earn your trust? How do we ensure more choice in the market if we don't? There are
You got it. But that's it, fam. Once again, we're acting in good faith. Just trust us. Believe us. We're doing what's right. We know better than the American people to tell them what is true and what is not truth. We're acting in good faith. And when I heard that, I was like, God, I mean, it might seem so simple and come out so easy, but it's so evil. It really is. I mean, the fact that you're sitting there and that you think you can play God with what free speech is and what it shouldn't be. I mean, they've gotten too big, fam.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter. Even if they were acting in good faith, like I said, they're not. But even if they were acting in good faith,
they have the right to.
That doesn't give you the right to be the decider of what I should hear and what I shouldn't hear, and what I should see and what I shouldn't see, what anybody should see or hear. Like that, it doesn't matter. Like good faith, like I don't care how you feel about it. This is like about free speech and freedom of the press and no censorship. I mean, this is essential to actually having any semblance of a democracy. And right now, we are really, really, really like diving deep into fascism, because this is like 1984 Big Brother. They can control the airwaves. They can control what you see, what you hear, what you believe. So what information are you getting? Good faith can mean different things to different people.
Exactly, fam. And here's something that Mark Zuckerberg points out, like, and this was so telling to me. It's like, once again, I put up a tweet this morning. I have to rely on Senate Republicans and stuff. And he even talks about the fact that Democrats aren't happy. There's not enough stuff pulled away. There's not enough stuff taken down, where the Republicans want more to be put up, where they want less to be taken down. So listen to Zuckerberg here. This guy's a freaking... you know my opinions about Zuckerberg. He got away with selling our information from Cambridge Analytica. And Johnny, we'll get to a point about that when Klobuchar comes up. But here's Zuckerberg.
All right, so
I know the feeling, Mr. Zuckerberg.
Chairman Wicker, Ranking Member Cantwell, and members of the committee, every day, millions of Americans use the internet to share their experiences and discuss issues that matter to them. Setting the rules for online discourse is an important challenge for our society, and there are principles at stake that go beyond any one platform. How do we balance free expression and safety? How do we define what is dangerous? Who should decide? I don't believe that private companies should be making so many decisions about these issues by themselves. And at Facebook, we often have to balance competing equities. Sometimes the best approach from a safety or security perspective isn't the best for privacy or free expression. So we work with experts across society to strike the right balance. We don't always get it right, but we try to be fair and consistent. The reality is that people have very different ideas and views about where the lines should be. Democrats often say that we don't remove enough content, and Republicans often say we remove too much. I expect that we'll hear some of those criticisms today. And the fact that both sides criticize us doesn't mean that we're getting this right, but it does mean that there are real disagreements about where the limits of online speech should be. And I think that's understandable. People can reasonably disagree about where to draw the lines. That's a hallmark of democratic societies, especially here in the U.S. with our strong First Amendment tradition.
More political ads and more
she
disinformation.
was
She spun
arguing
right
for
off
more.
into it.
She
Yeah.
was arguing for
more,
more instead of saying, you need to stop censoring. Like, that, my argument would have been like, you need to stop censoring, period. You have no right to decide who gets to see this and who gets to see this or not. It doesn't matter what you think is real or what isn't real. That's irrelevant. You don't get to decide that. The people get to decide that. No, why don't you censor this more? That's not fair. This isn't true. Blah, blah, blah. Like, no. That is, like, ridiculous to me. And it shouldn't be a partisan issue. This should be completely, like, nonpartisan. Like, okay, you protect free speech, period. That's it. End of story. Yeah. No, now we got to make it like, oh, like, why are you agreeing with Republicans? You guys sound like Republicans. Trump? Like, no, you morons. Like, we don't want 1984. We don't want fascism. This is a form of fascism. And if you're supporting censorship, you are a fascist. You are on your way to being a fascist, whether you like it or not. Yeah. You are. So all these Democrats that people love are spewing fascist talking points.
Yeah, and the fact that here's his avenue too. He's so slick, this guy. His avenue is the fact that these are the rules in place, these are the laws, and we shouldn't have to do that. In other words, he's abdicating to the Congress, saying you guys have to make laws to make these things more clear right now. That private companies shouldn't be making these calls. So he's taking it off his hands and saying, hey, man, we're just doing this to the letter of the law. You can't hold this against us. It's almost like the same people with the Breonna Taylor situation where they said they acted accordingly to the law. Well, you need to change these laws. And in some ways, fam, we do have to act. There needs to be laws put into place to protect these things. They shouldn't go on these companies. But neither the Republicans or the Democrats are acting accordingly, and they're not agreeing with each other one way or the other. I think a lot of the majority of the Republicans want to see more censorship against China, against Iran, against people they deem to be enemies of the states, where the Democrats want to eliminate any type of political rival in their news. Going after Donald Trump, we saw this from Kamala Harris when we asked her, hey, you still want to remove him from Twitter? She was all for it. They don't care about it. They want censorship. It's something that's disgusting. And Zuckerberg took that position of like, hey, man, how can you put this on us? You guys make laws. It's almost like the ACB stuff we'll talk about later on, Amy Coney Barrett, when she says, these are the laws you made. You want to change them. You make them. I'll interpret them the way they were written. That's it. We'll talk more about that after. But he is taking that approach of like, these are the laws that are in play. You guys need to act. You can't put this on us. Sorry. Amy Klobuchar, she's for censorship. Here she goes.
Thank you, Senator Gardner. The ranking member has now deferred to Senator Klobuchar, so Senator, you are now recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. I want to note first that this hearing comes 6 days before Election Day, and it makes, I believe we're politicizing, and the Republican majority is politicizing, which should actually not be a partisan topic. And I do want to thank the witnesses here for appearing, but also for the work that they're doing to try to encourage voting and to put out the correct information when the president and others are undermining vote by mail, something we're doing in every state in the country right now.
All right, so she says it right there. Once again, the political slip. Why aren't you censoring? She thinks that we should be censoring anybody who talks against the mail-in stuff right now. She's like, go ahead and censor more, what not? You know what I'm saying? And they always use this time over here, rather than get to the crux of the situation, and rather than get to the meat and potatoes, they use most of their time to take jabs at the other side. That's all they're doing. It is political theater, fam. So
yeah.
Also,
studies have shown.
she has that Trump moment. You know when you say Trump sometimes gets in trouble when he says something he's not supposed to say? She does talk about that algorithm. Johnny, remember when we watched the Cambridge Analytica movie, and it talks about how it takes a digital kind of print of what you like, what not, and it acts as a boomerang to get inside to you. In other words, you have a digital footprint it's paying attention to. And I always think about this too, fam. Like when I'm into my work, I'm writing stuff down, I got the folder going, I'm stepping up because I'm all hyped and whatnot, and I sit back down, and there's a picture of some huskies or some otters, and then I'll get lost for like an hour looking at huskies or otters
like
or
3
gorillas
hours,
or whatever,
4 hours,
whatever the
you
case
guys.
may be, but it understands, it knows what you like. You know, it has this kind of mechanism
It knows
where
you're a
it's this
goon.
AI, you know, it knows that I'm a goon that likes huskies. So really quick, Johnny, I just went 05, a little bit about it. We'll talk about it. She mentions this, but this is something that we need to pay attention as a society about what this AI can do and how it can sense what you like, how it can toy with you. Now, they think that they're going to use this as an excuse that Putin's controlling your mind. No, it's not. But there is an AI system that is paying attention to what you look at and how they can kind of manipulate or waste your time or make you go off to something else. I just want to talk about this. We're not going to play this for long because I want to get to the last Senator Thune.
We're currently leading in that area. And to your question about how we're...
I still have concerns, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but I have such limited time. One of the things that last thing I want to ask you about is divisiveness on the platform. And I know there's been a recent studies have shown that part of your algorithms, they push people towards more polarized content, left, right, whatever. In fact, one of your researchers warned senior executives that our algorithms exploit the human brain's attraction to divisiveness. The way I look at it, more divisiveness, more time on the platform, the company makes more money. Does that bother you, what it's done to our politics?
All right, you can
Senator,
stop that. There's something's going on with the Rokfin, Johnny. Keeps starting over or something. Something's going on. We'll have to give them oh my God, we'll have to talk to them after. Thank you for the super chats from everyone. We'll get to them in a second. But I just want to talk about this, fam, right now, as far as like what goes on. It is a tactic. It knows what you like. Spend more time on the platform, make more money. It's all about the dollars and cents. So this is another dangerous weapon that the internet does have, and it needs to be controlled. And these digital footprints, it's collecting your personal data to get this. There has to be a law for transparency where it can't collect data to have these type of practices to use them against you. We need transparency across the board when it comes to this stuff. And the last one. Do you have anything to say before we get to the last one? Because this is Senator Thune. I believe he's from one of the Dakotas. He's a Republican. These are the line of questionings we need. And I'll just tell you to stop as we go along, Johnny. And this will be the last one. This is a whole big Senate hearing, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to take the time to get into it, it's a lot of stuff to take in. Please go to C-SPAN, check it out. But this is the last one I'm going to repeat because this is the testimony I liked right here.
Mr.
I think you've gotten feedback from the lawsuit, so I'm looking forward to our next hearing to discuss it more. Thank you.
Get out of
Thank you
here.
very much. Senator Thune, you're now recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate you convening the hearing today, which is an important follow-up to the subcommittee hearing that we convened in July on Section 230. Many of us here today, and many of those we represent, are deeply concerned about the possibility of political bias and discrimination by large internet and social media platforms. Others are concerned that even if your actions aren't skewed, that they are hugely consequential for our public debate, yet you operate with limited accountability. Such distrust is intensified by the fact that the moderation practices used to suppress or amplify content remain largely a black box to the public.
Stop right there.
Moreover, the public explanations given by the platforms for taking...
All right. What do you guys think about that? Johnny, black box, fee, they don't have to tell you. They can just shut you down. Their moderation and all the... This is something that's very, very serious right here, which we said with this new executive order that Trump was supposedly talking about, is that if they're going to stop you, if they're going to take you down, they have to tell you why. He is pointing it out that the practices they have in which they judge what free speech is or what fair speech is or what isn't biased or what is biased is unfair.
I mean, I think it is, obviously, but like, I don't think it should be up to anybody, right? Like, I don't want to go to the danger of having it be the government either.
Yeah.
Right? We have to have the solution where it's like, okay, nobody decides this. But I feel like all the conversations revolve around who gets to decide. And it's like, well, the only people should be the public. The public I can go online and decide if I want to watch Alex Jones or not. That's it. End of story, right?
Yeah. By the way, we did have 30 people on the Rokfin before shit went down. Johnny, can you continue to play that a little bit more? I just want to play a little bit more of Senator Thune. And
Taking down or
we'll move on
suppressing
shortly.
content too often seem like excuses that have to be walked back after scrutiny.
See?
And due to exceptional secrecy with which platforms protect their algorithms and content moderation practices, it's been impossible to prove one way or another whether political bias exists. So users are stuck with anecdotal information that frequently seems to confirm their worst fears, which is why I've introduced 2 bipartisan bills, the Platform Accountability and Consumer Transparency, or the PACT Act, and the Filter Bubble Transparency Act, to give users, the regulators, and the general public meaningful insight into online content moderation decisions and how algorithms may be amplifying or suppressing information. And so I look forward to continuing that discussion today. My Democrat colleagues suggest that when we criticize the bias against conservatives, that we're somehow working the refs. But the analogy of working the refs assumes that it's legitimate even to think of you as refs. It assumes that you 3 Silicon Valley CEOs get to decide what political speech gets amplified or suppressed, and it assumes that you're the arbiters of truth, or at the very least, the publishers making editorial decisions about speech. So yes or no, I would ask this of each of the 3 of you, are the Democrats correct that you all are the legitimate referees over our political speech? Mr. Zuckerberg, are you the ref?
Senator, I certainly think not, and I do not want us to have that role.
Mr. Dorsey, are you the ref?
No.
Mr. Pashai, are you the ref?
Senator, I do think we make content moderation decisions, but we are transparent about it, and we do it to protect users. But we really believe and support maximizing freedom of expression.
Yeah, bullshit.
You can't
Stop
support
it there.
freedom of expression when you are censoring it. Like it doesn't take a rocket science. I mean, this is like the Google
That was a good question.
CEO.
Yeah.
Like this is like you can't say with a straight face you support freedom of speech when and freedom of expression when you're censoring it. It doesn't matter if you censor it a little bit or no. You can't censor it, in my opinion, period, because this is always the slippery slope. It always ends up happening. And when you're a powerful big tech company that has so much oversight over so many people's information, data, etc., you definitely shouldn't have the power to decide what they should and shouldn't see.
Yeah. We're going to leave it at that for now. And
Hold on, let's play a little bit more.
you want to play a little bit more?
Yeah, just give me a
Okay,
second.
go ahead.
Three knows, and I agree with that. You are not the referees of our political speech. That's why all 3 of you have to be more transparent and fair with your content moderation policies and your content selection algorithms, because at the moment, it is, as I said, largely a black box. There's real mistrust among the American people about whether you're being fair or transparent. And this extends to concerns about the kinds of amplification and suppression decisions your platforms may make on Election Day and during the post-election period if the results of the election are too close to call. And so I just want to underscore again for my Democratic friends who keep using this really bad referee analogy, Google, Facebook, and Twitter are not the referees over our democracy. Now, second question, the PACT Act, which I referenced earlier, includes provisions to give users due process and an explanation when content they post is removed. So this is, again, a yes or no question. Do you agree that users should be entitled to due process and an explanation when content they post has been taken down? Mr. Zuckerberg.
Watch this, Johnny.
Senator, I think that would be a good principle to have.
Thank you. Mr. Dorsey.
Absolutely. We believe in a fair and straightforward appeals process.
Great. Mr. Bashai?
Yes, Senator.
All right, stop.
Thank you.
Did they give Tulsi Gabbard due process? Did they even let her know why they took her down? Did they give us
They give
due
an
process?
explanation, but it's like the briefest explanation.
It's
ever.
broad.
That's why
It's
it's
broad.
very vague, ambiguous, and broad.
Yeah, because it has to be broad so they can take down more people. If it's very specific, then it's not going to do the job they wanted to do. They're over here lying out of their ass saying, yeah, but that's not how they're acting.
Zuckerberg's pause to me was the
Yeah.
most telling. Mr. Zuckerberg, and once again, I have to rely on a Republican senator, Mr. Thune, to ask the proper questions to expose what this power these people have and the mechanisms which they keep power, and they are slanted to one party in this particular situation. Dorsey, Zuckerberg, Pachai, they all want the Democratic Party in there because the Democratic Party allows them to do what they want to do. The Democratic Party is now the party of censorship. So early in the show, we had our foreign policy from Mr. Obama, Biden, and Kamala Harris, and now we have the second reason why you can never vote for these Democrats, especially the new Democrats in there. They cheer on censorship, they let it go, and we have to count on a friggin' Republican from South Dakota to get some transparency into what's going on and ask the hard questions.
I mean, it's just really sad because on one hand, you have the Republicans who will literally, push out racist rhetoric, who literally are anti-immigrant, who don't care about poor people. And then you have the Democrats who also don't care about poor people, then push censorship and are extremely pro-war. Not to say the Republicans aren't either, but they're trying to one-up them at this point. It's like what do we have? Well, that seems pretty much the same to me. We have one giant oligarchy.
Yeah.
I don't want to give credit, at all to these two representations of a two-party system because that's all they are. They're a thinly veiled representation. They're not real. It's an oligarchy. These people are working in tandem. There's only certain voices that are trying to do a little bit of good, and that you can recognize the good that they're trying to do. I mean, this guy's bringing up really good points. He happens to be a Republican. Oh well, I agree with his points. I don't give a damn whether he's a Republican or a Democrat. And I think there has to be that ability in a lot of the left to be able to see that. Otherwise, you're going to end up cheering for more war and more censorship just because you want to own the Republicans.
Yeah.
And that's not how it works.
Yeah, balls
how
and
it should
strikes,
work.
fam. Balls and strikes. I agree with you 1,000%.